Hey everyone, it's Simon Hurley from Inklips. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. Now, I really love ink and I have invested a lot into a bunch of different colored ink pads, but I find I don't get a ton of use out of them. So today I'm going to show you 4 different designs and ways you can use your ink pads directly onto the cardstock to give you some really awesome and fun effects on your cards. Each technique that I'm going to do in today's video is all super simple to recreate. However, each time you do it, it'll get more of an organic effect and it's hard to recreate the exact same thing you want before, which I think is really awesome. So for this first card, I'm going to do kind of an ink pad swiping technique where one of the edges is really kind of messy and it gives you a really awesome look. So I'm just going to take each one of these ink pads and kind of the top corner or edge of the ink pad, and I'm going to swipe it from side to side on the card, and the darker you do it, the more filled in the color will be and saturated it will be. So if you want a lighter, more chalky kind of skippy color, you just want to do a lighter pressure and go over it less amount of times to get that kind of effect. Now you'll notice one of the sides of the cards is a little bit messier and one side is more clean, so you can decide which side you want to use, or you could use the whole card. It just kind of varies what kind of effect you want. I think it would be super fun to try with those mini ink cubes as well, and to do one row of color for each little cube to get those little textures, and you get kind of a different shape and effect as well. So I think that would be really fun to try. So for this next technique, I'm just going to do a really organic and simple stripe technique down your card. Now you could clean this up a little bit if you want to by doing the same technique using a ruler to line the whole thing up and kind of swipe your ink pad against like a metal ruler while you do this, but I thought to just give these organic lines a really cool effect, I would just do it simply and plain with my hands, and you can see kind of how it turned out here with some of the lines a little bit thicker and some of them a little bit thinner than others. So all I'm doing is taking the direct edge of the ink pad and I'm just going to swipe it all the way down the card with the long edge here, and this gives it a really awesome effect. Some of the lines are way thinner than the others and I love kind of the uneven effect of this, but like I said, if you wanted it to be a little bit cleaner and more spaced out, you could measure out the spaces and do it with a ruler, but I think just doing it like this makes it go really fast and you get a really awesome organic effect each time, and that's kind of what I love about using these ink pads for all the techniques that we're doing today. Now this technique might be one of my favorites for today. It gives a really fun patterned effect and you can kind of get your own pattern paper here. So all I'm going to do is just take each one of my ink pads, kind of like that swiping method and the stripe technique, kind of a mix of both of those. So I'm taking the edge of the ink pad and going right across using different stripes, except I'm making these a lot thicker and more kind of chalk-like with a lighter pressure. And I'm going to do all the different colors in kind of a rainbow order. So I'm going to do red, orange, green, and then blues on one half of the cardstock. And then I'm going to go kind of in more of the pink region and the purples up top. So it kind of all comes out from the red. And once I'm done kind of doing this stripe pattern with the diagonals, you could leave it just like that on the card with all these different kind of messy looking stripes, and they're a lot thicker as well. But if you want to complete the pattern like I'm going to do today, all you need to do is just go flip your cardstock the diagonally and do the exact same technique you've been doing, except create the lines on the other direction. Now you want to make sure to keep a light pressure here so you can kind of see all the different colors underneath, which I think is a really fun part of this. And it's really hard to keep control of your ink pads and do the exact same looking lines every single time, so you get this really organic looking plaid effect. But again, if you wanted to use a ruler for this and kind of measure it all out, you could get a little bit of a cleaner effect, but I kind of like how messy it turns out in the end, and it creates this really fun plaid effect on your card. Now this last technique is kind of just using the edge of your ink pad as a little stamp and creating your own little texture that way. So I like to do this with the round ink pads as well to create kind of a whole grounding background for them, but I never thought of just taking the edge of the ink pad and kind of just pressing a little bit of it onto your cardstock, and since it's got kind of that felt texture to it, you get that really cool texture on your card, and you also get these little cool color stripes in it as well. So it creates kind of 2 different effects, and you can get all the colors in there if you only do little bits at a time. Now once again, it's pretty hard to get all of these lined up perfectly, but if you wanted to, you could. And I also think this would be super fun to just use those little mini ink pads and just kind of press those into the cardstock to get little square imprint patterns as well. Now to finish these off, I'm going to cut some of them down. You definitely don't need to do this part, but I'm cutting some of the white space off of some of them, and then I'm going to cut some of the designs in half, so I can use only half of them, and then I can add a big sentiment onto it. And you can use both sides on each card, so you can make 2 cards out of one panel, which is awesome. Then for this plaid one, I'm just cutting down both sides to create a little border on each edge, and you could use some colored cardstock behind that. So I'm just going to mount them onto white card bases. Like I said though, you could use darker colored card bases on each one, but I'm just going to mount them. Some I'm doing on a diagonal like this one you'll see here, and then some of them I'm just going to do straight up and down on like half of the card. or you could do the full card base and you could do all of it being a design, but I like the look of different diagonals and different patterns on each one. Since all these cards have a lot going on in the background, I decided to keep it super simple with the sentiments and kind of go really bold with them in some of scripty fonts and some really big block lettering. So for this first one, I'm doing some of these separate little letters from Hero Arts, and I've added them all together, and then I'm going to push a little piece of cardstock underneath to make sure they're all lined up, and then I'm going to pick them up with an acrylic block, or if you want it to be super straight, you could use your Misty if you want to stamp more than once, and I'm going to stamp that down right onto the cardstock, following kind of the diagonal in the card in a nice bold black ink, and this kind of goes along with the design effect just to keep it directly on that angle there, and it all fits on the card then as well. For this next sentiment, I'm using this big bold scripty prayers message, and that's all I'm going to use on it, just this nice prayers, and you could use it for really anything then, and I'm going to cut it out using just a scissors right around the edge of the die, leaving just a little bit of a white border. You'll notice I do this with a lot of my sentiments because it goes pretty fast. You don't need to go in all the details of them, and I think it finishes off the whole design element and gives it just a little bit of a cleaner look if it has that edge right around the stamping. So after I've done that, I'm just going to add it right onto the card using some foam tape to pop it up and add a little bit of dimension and texture to the card. Then for the next card, I'm just going to use some regular bold stamps like I did earlier, line them up that just say hi with an exclamation point, and I'm going to stamp that in some bold black ink right next to that big design pattern directly onto the card base here, and I think that adds a really cool sentiment to it as well, just for a regular everyday occasion. Then for this next one, I'm going to use this big scripty awesome sentiment and a sentiment right above it that says go and be, and I'm going to stamp that down right above my design again, right on the card base, which I think is awesome and adds a little bit less work than popping it up on the card. So here are all the cards together. I think all these backgrounds were super fun to create, and they're big and bold and graphic, and they're really easy to do as well. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I loved creating it. If you do, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you want to join my crafty fam to not miss another video like this one, make sure you click that subscribe button on screen and click that little bell as well to get all my notifications from my channel. If you want to see more of my content, there's more videos on screen here, and if you want to visit my blog inklips.com on screen, there's much more information over there and pictures, as well as links to all the products I used. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a great day. Bye!